already have folks joining us. That's wonderful. You are joining the watercolors, earth pigments and watercolors session this morning. For those of you tuning in, we're going to disappear for just 1 second, get us out on Facebook Live as well, and we will be right back on. Thank you so much.
I got she's into.
Well, welcome everyone. Erin's just setting up the Facebook Live. She'll be right back, but welcome. It's so exciting to see so many people here.
All right, I am back. Hello, everyone. Oh my gosh, we have so many participants already today. Very exciting. We will get started in just a little bit. We are going to allow some time for folks to trickle in. Please note at this time, your personal audio and video is going to be off to allow Adrian and Hiroko to go through their presentation uninterrupted. But I have some exciting news at the end. We are going to allow folks to come into the session, ask questions, and engage. We also have ways that you can do that throughout the session this morning. So we're just so excited to have everyone. At this time, I'm going to share my screen so you guys can see, you guys and gals can see our Arts Festival information. And we'll probably just give it another minute or so. This was a very popular session. We're so excited. Very popular session. So we just want to give folks enough time to trickle in this morning. We're also out on Facebook Live, so if you're joining us on Facebook Live, welcome. We're so excited to have you. This is a Zoom presentation, so we will be doing Q&A through our Zoom features. I will be trying to check the Facebook as well if anyone wants to interact there, but it's primarily going to be off of Zoom this morning. Alrighty, well, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. You are joining us for the Bluff Palette Project, transforming earth pigments into watercolor paints. We have our special guests here today, Adrian Caesar and Hiroko Yamamoto. We're so thankful for them to be here this morning. They have a really, really intriguing presentation set up for everyone today. So we're so excited for everyone joining us live. This will be a recorded event, so feel free to share it with your friends and family after the fact, or if you just want to go back and jot some extra notes down about the process. This is brought to you today by Rocky Mountain Power, Community Rebuilds, Adventure Wealth, and Utah's Canyon Country. We'd also like to thank all of our sponsors from Bluff and San Juan County who help us year after year. The business owners of Bluff really go above and beyond to make this special event possible. We know this is a little bit different this year, being virtual, but we have had great engagement and we're just so thrilled to have you all with us again this morning. What would be an arts festival without our virtual Bluff Artist Market? You can find these artists and more. We have about 30 listed out on our website at www.bluffartsfestival.org. Feel free to go in, peruse these. The links out on Facebook will take you directly to the artists themselves. We know that this year has been a little bit challenging for artists to be able to reach their markets, and so this is a great way to go in, support your local artists, pick up some really amazing pieces. We have jewelry and art, and as you see, the willow weaving. It's just really phenomenal. There's a wide array of art out there, and we definitely encourage you to check that out. As I said, www.bluffartsfestival.org. All right, and we have one more upcoming event after today. We are in the home stretch. We've had a really exciting week of just fantastic events, but we're closing out today at noon. That's noon Mountain Time with our Bluff Arts Festival closing ceremony with special guests Pam Houston and Amy Irvine. We're so thrilled to have them as well, so make sure you tune back in. That'll be both on Facebook Live and Zoom. It's not too late to get your own personal Zoom individualized link. You can find that out on our website as well and register so you can participate in that event as well. All righty. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to our special guests, Adrienne and Hiroko. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Oh, real fast before I turn it over, so sorry. Wanted to tell the folks at home who joined maybe just a little bit later, your audio and your video is going to be silent throughout the presentation. However, we'd love to do a test right now. Go ahead and type in your chat box who you are and where you're from. We know we've had people from all over the country tuning in with us, lots of neighbors, of course, but we've seen people from coast to coast. So if you would like to engage, we'd love to have you. Go ahead and type in your chat feature right now, name and where you're from. And then you can also practice raising your hand. At the end of the session, we are going to ask folks if they'd like to engage. I'll bring you over onto audio and video, and so you can interact with Adrienne and Hiroko directly. They have some really cool content. Part of this is getting the community involved. So you can practice raising your hand right now. And then, of course, if you also have questions, feel free to use that Q&A. That's what we'll be using at the end. So it's kind of all those tabs down there at the bottom. Awesome, Barbara, I see you there. I see folks from all over the place. We have Caroline and Aaron and Carol and Kathy. Oh, this is so excellent. Hi, Bonnie. Oh, great. So excited to have you all here. Okay, so test those out as we go. And then I'll be back on a little bit later to help with Q&A. But otherwise, Adrienne Caesar and Hiroko Yamamoto. Thank you, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you, Erin. We're so excited to present our work today with you. Let me just share my screen. So what we're presenting today is what we've been calling the Bluff Palette Project, and really it comes from our inspiration from the landscape and how we can start to incorporate it into our own craft and how we can record the landscape that's unique to the Bluff area. So we'll spend a little time doing introductions. We'll also tell you a little bit more about Design Build Bluff that has a 20-year history doing design build programs in this area, about our inspiration. And of course, we'll spend a lot of time talking about creating watercolor paints from earth pigment. And then afterwards, we'd like to open it up for discussion with the community members, whether you're in Bluff or somewhere else, and talk about how we could envision a larger palette project that maybe relates to other mediums or other natural materials. So my name's Adrienne Caesar. I'm from Newburyport, Massachusetts. I moved here last year to work with Design Build Bluff as a volunteer builder. And what inspired me to move out here was really their use of natural building materials. So I'll let Hiroko introduce herself.
Yes, my name is Hiroko Yamamoto. And originally I came from Japan and I moved to Bluff about 7 years ago. And I ran the Design Build Bluff program with my husband, Atsushi Yamamoto. And my research is focusing about hands-on programs as architectural education and the influence on the local community. Also, I'm focusing about the traditional building materials and the method, including earthen building techniques. So that's me. Thank you.
Okay, great. And For those of you who are, let me show you. Here are Hiroko and Atsushi, our instructors for Design Build Bluff. You can see our team 2020 here. We're all using masks and in general practicing social distancing every day. This is our client and her family. These are our donors and supporters of the project, and I'm up here on the scaffolding with some of the students. Design Build Bluff, for those who aren't familiar, is a university program based out of the Four Corners region. So you can see here, here we are in Bluff, and this is the Navajo Nation, and those are the clients that we serve. I'd like to show you a short video that was made last year. It's about 8 minutes long. PBS featured us on their show called This is Utah. So, all right, I'm gonna play this and I hope you enjoy. Oh.
The University of Utah is home to a unique academic design build program. Not only does the program teach students to create efficient spaces of refuge in the desert, it also teaches them to create room for inclusion and cultural awareness in their hearts.
When we arrived, you could see the Milky Way, and I just kind of looked up and I was like, whoa, I've never seen the Milky Way before.
It's almost like they go on a vision quest out in the desert and they come back changed people. Design Build Bluff is, on the one hand, an opportunity for students to learn how to build at full scale and design the thing that they built. And then on the other hand, it's the opportunity to work in collaboration with the rural and native communities in the Utah Four Corners. With this, right? Like I think all your metal work should be. So we are just finishing our design semesters, and they'll be basically moving down to Bluff from Salt Lake City, so 6 hours south of here, and be constructing this thing from scratch to finish.
It's like moving day.
It's moving day.
Build a house in a semester.
This year, our group is only 5 people. In the past, they've had as many as 16, 17. So getting all the work done in a small time frame is going to be really challenging. To me, there's also kind of a fear that the client, we want her to really enjoy the home. Hopefully, you know, she falls in love with it.
Build Bluff 2019.
From the beginning, when I met these students, I was like, where are the men? Where are the muscles? Oh, well, never mind. We women are strong. We got women power. Navajo women are the strongest individuals throughout the reservation. I've endured quite a bit, and I'm a survivor. I was homeless. I just had to go to this relative's house, to that relative's house. It's really hard. It's really hard. It's really sad. It hurts your heart knowing that you don't have a home. Just that feeling when you come home, you know, I no longer felt that for many years.
Gotta bring that sushi back. Yeah. Okay. So we've been out here for 7 weeks now, building.
The site has been almost the largest influence of the design. The San Juan River is just right over there, and the reason that we put the building on piers in the first place was because the house is in the flood zone.
We kind of came in, we were all timid with the tools and the materials, and now we feel very comfortable around them.
I didn't know anything about construction, and I think that's what the field is lacking, is that architects draw in the office and they don't really know how things are put together.
We still have a lot to learn, and I think that's what's exciting about the process, is just being able to learn something new every day.
We learned a lot about how to deal with, you know, different cultures and different types of people. and how you really have to take into their accounts, like their perspectives.
With our client, Brenda, she really wants to provide a home for her son. We just want to help with that. And that's also why the whole working together and compromising with her is really important.
We were kind of thinking, oh, she's going to expect all these Navajo traditional elements in the home, like an eastern-facing door, and she didn't really express that as something that was super important to her. At the end of the day, a home is very personal. It's not a reflection of her entire culture. It's not her entire community. It's just for her.
Rachel, are you ready?
Walls are up, windows are in, we're moving faster than previous years. It's really empowering, we're doing this and it's happening, and the end is not in sight yet, but there is an end and we'll get there.
Should we keep going higher? We volunteer sometimes our time to go spend with the kids at the elementary school, get to know the community a little bit better. For me, just talking to the children, getting to know them a little bit better and know what their family lives are like. I think just living here and experiencing what it's like to be so far away from different resources that are easily available in cities. It's a totally different way of life.
It is actually really great to live here, and I wasn't expecting that. And so being in this environment is actually, I think, brought the best out of me, and I'm more confident when it comes to outdoor stuff, and then also construction.
It's beautiful coming to the site every morning and then leaving it, coming for the sunrise and the sunset every day. That's been amazing. So even though the day, every single day something went wrong on site, we're in such a beautiful place. I've become more of a calm person because of how challenging this has been.
We all had our breaking point, but when one person breaks, the other come back stronger and we rebuild each other. Definitely friendships were made in it and bonds were there. I can't imagine doing it with anybody else.
That was great. Next one.
What I think is unique about this group is that each individual person, coming from the man who doesn't give out compliments, is an amazing person, amazing builder, and so to be able to have the privilege to work with you from my heart, it's been a pleasure. So thank you so much.
All right, come on in. So we're just finishing up, putting the final touches on things.
Oh my gosh. My plants are in. Wow, this is actually my house looking wonderful. It's amazing, ladies.
It feels so good to be done, and I feel like Reese Witherspoon. I want to toss my hat and be like, we did it.
We started with 50,000 pounds of material sitting on the ground over there, and now it's, put together into a home.
My biggest hope from doing this is that not only have you handed her a house, but I hope that it's durable enough that it's going to last a long time.
And maybe potentially the house being passed on to future generations.
I've been waiting for this for many years, just having a place to call my own. This is it. This is it. Beautiful. Beautiful work, beautiful home. And it's mine. My house. I can't wait to move in.
Funding.
Okay, great. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. That was our project last year, titled The Silver Slice. That's just down the road, east of town. And I wanted us to both spend a little time talking about what our inspiration is and why we find natural materials so exciting. And for me, it's about the beauty of the landscape and also how we can incorporate that beauty into the built environment. And so this is one of our projects, Wind Catcher in 2010. So this is a rammed earth wall that you see on the left, and then you see the house and its environment on the right. And then we have, yes, we have Lone Tree on the left, 2017. We have earthen floors here, natural plaster walls. And then the next photo is Silver Slice, last year's project in 2019. This is a Cadillac shower, also called Moroccan plaster. It's used for wet areas. It's water resistant. And the last project is SCO 2011, and this is a straw bale house. And so you can see the thickness of the walls. And I just love how all of these photos kind of like frame a view and incorporate the same colors into the interior space that are in the exterior space. Do you have anything else you'd like that? Okay, great. And then I just included these photos as well. These are our clients' workspaces. Some of our clients are also craftspeople. So creating an environment that's also inspiring to them. So now we're going to spend time talking about watercolor paints, which I think is that everyone is really excited for. And we're going to review some of the tools that we used during the process. So spoon or trowel, I believe everyone has access to that, as well as a container. And that's just for collection of the earth material that you want to use. And then to sift the material, you're going to need to separate the aggregate into different sizes. We use let me make sure I'm sharing. Oh. Yeah, my video is on. Can someone type in the chat whether they can see this?
Hey, Adrienne,
Okay.
we're still seeing your earth pigment to watercolor paint
Oh,
slide.
okay, great. So let me stop the share and then I'll reshare. Okay, great. So spoon and trowel. We use the metal sieve for separating different types of aggregate, sizes of aggregate. I also wanted to mention, if you don't have a metal sieve, you can also use a container, a screen, and a rubber band. That works too. For breaking up the earth material, we used a mortar and pestle. I'm sure everyone's familiar with that. You can also use a rock and a hard surface. That works too. The next item is watercolor medium. Actually, yeah, here we go. If you want to get a finer pigment, we also use a glass muller on a glass surface to grind the pigment with the watercolor medium. And then we have our watercolor medium that we use, which is gum arabic. We got it in a powder form. It's a sap from a tree. And this is the mixture. We add the earthen pigment to this mixture. And then you need something for storing. So we have like a few things here. These are the half pans that we used. And we put them in a little tin, you can see. Or if you already have a watercolor palette, this is my palette, and I have my artificial colors over here and the colors that we made this year on this side. So there's lots of options. Let me share my screen again. I also want to mention that this year we were able to do this project with the students that are here on campus. So this is the site that we went to. We probably only hiked for half a mile, and so the results are just from that half a mile hike. And we encourage the students and anyone who's doing this process to make observations of the landscape, even if it's not earth that you're intending on collecting. There's just so many beautiful patterns and different textures. So this one I find really fascinating. It had rained recently and then been very dry. So we found lots of like clay pieces, some very thin and some very thick. And some of our collectors here. You can see Zuki on the left and one of our students on the right. So once you've brought this material back to your home or wherever you plan on making it, you can see the 3 steps here. So this is the raw material. We first want to break up the material in your mortar and pestle. And then we want to sift the material through the sieve. And you'll find that you'll get different grades, sizes of aggregate. And then what I encourage you to do, or I feel like I've had the most success with, is returning the aggregate, the larger aggregate, like this whole pan, return to the mortar and pestle and crush it more and see if you can almost get everything to be the same size. And so there's a process where you're going back and forth between, the mortar and pestle and the sieve and getting everything to this finer pigment powder. And then this is another process that we encourage you to experiment with. You can buy watercolor mediums. We made our own watercolor medium with the gum arabic mixture. We also used honey in our mixture and essential oil. I can send you the ratios later. And then this was us testing different ratios. So we have a 5:5 pigment powder to gum arabic mixture ratio. And then we have 6:5, 7:5, 8:5, 9:5, 10:5. And then we tested which concentrations we liked the most. And we actually found that it seemed like the 8 or 9 to 5 pigment powder to gum arabic seemed to be the most potent, more than the 10. So we've also spoke with some artists in town that just use the pigment powder and water. And then we did some experimenting as well with just water and honey. So there's a lot of possibilities here. And we spoke briefly about some alternative tools. So you can see here, we didn't have enough mortar and pestle for all the students. So we got creative. We used some rocks to break up the material and then sifted it through a container and screen mesh. And then if you want to get more tools and get a finer pigment, we use this glass muller on glass to mix the fine pigment with the gum arabic solution. And every student made their own color. So these are some of the colors that we found to be on this short half-a-mile hike. And then the watercolors. So as part of their sketch class, we also encourage them to visit local sites and record what they see. So these are some of the students' sketches using the watercolor pigments. And I just wanted to mention that the next process that we'll be working on here with the students is creating plaster samples. Actually, this afternoon we'll be creating some plaster samples. This is this year's project. It's called 4 Peaks, and it's located in Tiknos Post. And these are plaster samples that Hiroko made from the site sand. You can see how closely related the colors are. And now I'd just like to spend a little bit of time talking about the Palette project as a larger community endeavor. We just think there's so much richness in this environment, and we're just curious what artistic practices are people already using natural materials in their artwork. Can we envision different types of palettes? These are some rocks that we collected, and then the pigment powders that we made. Yep. And this is some of our inspiration. So this is a architecture firm in the Netherlands called Atelier NL. And they actually collected buckets of dirt from farming plots in one region of the Netherlands, and they've laid out these ceramic tiles made from the earth in the order that they were collected geographically. And then on top of that, they ended up making ceramic dishware to use at farm-to-table dinners. So you're eating food from the earth and also on a plate that's made from the earth. So really inspiring. And then they also were working on this project with exploring different types of sand that turn into what colors of glass they can turn into in the region. So these are all sand from the Netherlands, and what color that glass becomes. And these are a few of our rock collections. Yeah, we just think there's so much richness and so much to explore, maybe in ceramics, maybe in glass. And we're trying to think of how we would want to display or convey this information to share with our community, but also share with the outside of Bluff, like what makes this place so special. And maybe it is a combination of photographs and materials and found objects. Alternatively, we think a palette could mean lots of different things. So do you eat local food? What does the local food palette look like in Bluff? Are there traditional practices around eating food in Bluff? And then I'm going to let Hiroko take this one away.
Okay, and then that one is it's called that's we borrow from one of the professor from Japan, Professor Hagino. So he brought us this idea. So his idea is he live in like a Noto area in Japan. It's very like a rural area, but it has rich nature around it. But then most of the culture is kind of it's getting like a faded out, or only elder people know that knowledge. But then he recognized we have to reconnect, or we have to reconnect the connection between the nature and the locals. So then he created this calendar. Actually, it's a booklet, but it's kind of a calendar. So when the locals can plant the seed, and then when which season they harvest it, or what color we can find in this area. So that's one of the really cool booklet. So then that's kind of like we are in the future, as one of the vision, we are thinking to create like this calendar or booklet in this area as a Bluff Palette project.
Yeah, and this particular area of Japan was recognized by the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations. And I'm just going to read from why this place is so important. And it says, the communities of Noto have joined to work together to sustainably maintain the Satoyama and Satomi and landscapes and the traditions that have sustained generations for centuries, aiming at building resilience to climate change impacts and to secure biodiversity on the peninsula for future generations. And this goal is really inspiring to me, just like how we can include tradition and preserve the environment. So now I'd like to open this up for a conversation. We really think there's so much local expertise and skills in Bluff, people that have lived here for a long time, people that are gardeners, geologists, archaeologists, people that go for evening walks or enjoy hiking. We all interact with the environment in a different way. And I'm just curious what types of palettes you can envision in Bluff, and what you love about Bluff, and how we can record that and share that with our community, that knowledge with our community, but also share that knowledge with other communities. What makes Bluff so unique and special?
Excellent. Okay, so the best way for folks at home to interact is please go ahead and raise your hand. You'll see the little function down at the bottom. It'll be raise hand, Q&A, and chat. So you can raise your hand now and we can move you into the session so you can talk. Or feel free to just message us in Q&A or chat. Adrian, we have a question from Amanda Podmore. She says, so interesting. Could you all drop the natural pigment ratio into the chat box and go over that one more time?
Sure. So let me pull that slide up again. So basically it's just the ratio that we found worked well for us was an eight parts pigment powder and 5 parts gum arabic solution. And we were making it at a larger scale because we created a half pan for every student. So it's hard to say the amount if you're just creating one half pan or just enough for one person. Let me put the ratios in I think I need to close my slide. Actually, Amanda, is it okay? Do you have any particular questions? I can send that ratio to a little bit later. Does that work? I actually created a guide on the process and the ingredients and the ratios that I was planning on sending after the information session. Does that work?
Yeah, we should be able to send out a follow-up email to everyone here on the webinar right now. And then for folks watching after the fact, you can feel free, Adrian, maybe we'll have a good way to contact you and they can reach out. Or I think they can reach us at our Arts Festival email, which I'll get in just a second. While we're going through that, I have a couple questions coming in. Dan Myers wants to know, he says, I'm always amazed with how the bluffs change color throughout the day and the seasons. Absolutely, right, Dan? Do you think about the interplay of light when you design your structures?
Do you want to answer that one?
That's a very good question.
Yeah. I think definitely we think about site orientation in terms of like this climate being so hot and how to mitigate the amount of exposure you have during the hot summer season, and then also how you get some heat from the building from the colder season. But in terms of like the way that the light plays off the building.
Yes, but also as a design build Bluff, one of our concepts is like this scenery. So we always respecting how like local people connect the nature or connect like this landscape traditionally. For example, like the lighting direction for the winter solstice or summer solstice or equinoxes, where the sun rises up and where the sun coming down. Sometimes we are thinking how we can lay out the window locations or door locations, and then kind of like how we can, even like the client for home recipient, how they can remind their connection between the earth. So that's we are always thinking about it. So that's one of the purpose we are doing these classes to our students. So then they can understand or they can remind how beauty or what are like rich resources in the nature. So then how we can bring this idea into the building resources. So that's like one of our strong concept. So we are not always, but we try to get these inspirations as much as possible into our design. I hope.
So cool. Oh, that's just really, really cool. We have a couple more questions coming in. Melissa says, so cool. Have you talked with geologists about places to find cool places with pigment variations?
Yeah, we haven't spoke with any geologists yet, but that is definitely a goal of ours. And we have looked at some soil maps to try to understand where more clay type soil is, because that's would already be easier to make into a finer pigment. So you can look on like the US Geological Survey website, and they will show you where clay deposits are, but it's something that we want to explore more of and hopefully get a geologist involved in this project.
Absolutely. Actually, on this same note, Carol notes sedimentary rock would crumble more easily than harder rocks. In your collection, you seem to have had both. Have you been able to incorporate non-sedimentary rock in pigments? Also, do you use biological materials?
This is really the very beginning of the project for us. And this is so much wonderful knowledge. Like clearly the community already has so much experience working with these materials. And so, no, we haven't used any that material yet, but we would love to start exploring that. So I'll reach out to you, Carol.
Yes, please teach us more.
Absolutely. And I have lots of questions coming in now, which is so exciting. Definitely feel free to keep typing those into your chat and your Q&A. I'll try to monitor both. And then if you'd like to talk to us face to face, please raise your hand and I can move you over. Kathy notes, and Stephanie, I see you out there, and Karen, I'll get to you as well. Kathy Green notes, many plants out there for making dyes and pigments. I wanted to know, Adrienne, what is the differences between making dyes versus making these watercolor pigments? What have you noticed so far?
So we've definitely spent more time making the watercolors, and it's really just taking the earth material and transforming it, right? Whereas the plants, I don't have as much experience in. We've done a little, we've done some shibori dyeing with some people in town, and that's been really fun. But we haven't yet explored. We've done some rabbit brush. Yeah. And so that's kind of where, you know, apart from Design Build Bluff, doing the plaster samples, I think personally that's the next area that I'm really interested in exploring. What are the local plants available and what colors come from those plants? And I think the color connection isn't as clear. Like for indigo, for example, is like a green plant and you have to reduce it and it oxidizes and it turns this deep blue color.
And also, it's really benefit from like you know, avoiding the insect, like insect bite. It can protect the clothes from the insect, right? So there are so many benefits or like a traditional knowledge in these like a nature samples, like a nature dye or like a plaster samples. So there is so many like a knowledge from ancient. So that's there are so many things we want to do. There are so many lists, so but we haven't done not everything. Yeah,
we haven't done everything yet. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That was one of the things that surprised me most in talking with you as you were getting this together. I was like, oh yeah, surely like, you know, a yellow rabbit brush will just turn yellow, but that's not the case at all. So lots of experimentation to be done there for sure. Let's see here. Stephanie would like to ask, can you talk about the different surfaces that you've tried the pigments on already and what were the varying results?
The different surfaces, like types of paper, is that?
Yeah, paper or other surfaces that you've actually painted on, and how has that turned out?
So we actually have only done it in sketchbook. So I think like our testing has been kind of limited there. The only different types of papers we've used are traditional watercolor paper and just mixed use, mixed media paper. I would say there's a big difference in terms of how long you spend grinding your pigment. So if you are feeling like you don't grind the pigment that much. You don't get it to a fine enough pigment. You're just going to have a grittier paint, which some people prefer. And then of course, if you use the glass Muller against glass with an already fine powder, you're going to get something that's a little bit smoother, and you're not going to notice the grain of the material.
Yeah, and I would imagine for artists who, actually maybe want some texture in their watercolor, that could be a good way to incorporate that. Did you notice that if it wasn't quite as smooth?
Yeah, I did you want to talk about?
And yeah, it's maybe slightly different topics, but when we go hike to to see more like a variety of the color of the earth, we often go to the hike around the washes. So then, because around the wash, there's a more silt or more clay included. So then it's mean like the sand has color too. However, the sand is in another word, sand is like a finest rock. So then it's really hard to crush, or it's really hard to get the pigment from the sand. So then clay is a little bit, it's finer and it's kind of easier to get the color. So then I always try to go around the washes to see the color, so that's I really recommend if you want to go. I really recommend to get like a little bit sample from washes. So then you can see more color, you can get more pigment from the samples.
And I guess to go back to Stephanie's question too, let's go back to the photos of the sketches. And you can see the pigment is very light. And so that's kind of why we started playing around with the ratio that we were using. We're like, is this
quite fun?
Yeah, is this color potent enough or concentrated enough in the watercolor medium? And so that's why we ended up making the ratio higher. We started at 5:5, 5 parts powder, 5 parts vehicle or watercolor medium. And now we're using an 8:5 ratio. So these are with the 5:5. So you can see some texture here. This is on not a watercolor, not watercolor paper, just regular mixed media.
General paper.
Yeah, right here. But then here it looks very smooth. So I think it depends on how much you're applying. It clearly looks like she went over this area multiple times to get that concentrated color.
Very cool. So we're getting multiple questions about, environmental impacts and how to safely and respectfully collect. So I have a few of those in there. If you all wouldn't mind kind of speaking to that, and certainly talk about the amounts that you need to generate these watercolors.
Right. So I meant to mention this earlier. We really don't want to do damage to the areas that we're collecting from. And so you need to be very conscious of where you're standing, where you're walking. We would also envision someone that we'd like to collaborate with, someone who's familiar with conservation or protecting natural areas, so they can provide more information and suggestions of where to collect from. But in terms of how much you need, less than a teaspoon to create a half pan. So really not a lot of material. We ended up, because we were making colors for all of the students, I think we probably have more we needed a half cup of material. And we had some left over for the jars. So this is the amount. And if we're following the 8:5 ratio, less than a teaspoon.
Yeah, so definitely folks at home, you do not need to bring home giant boulders in order to do this.
Just a little bit, yeah. It's really
just a little bit.
size.
Great, yeah.
So that's why when we do natural processing for the building project, we always using a side sand. So we have to digging out the side sand from the foundation work, right? So then I'm always using how we can turn this sand or dirt from the site into the final product, a finished material. So that's kind of that's design build Bluff challenge.
Very cool. Very, very cool. Yes, no, we of course want to remind everyone at home that you should be very cautious of where you are collecting any kind of samples from. Be, cautious and respectful of your environment. And of course, we have so many places in and around Bluff that are culturally sensitive. We do not advise, we would say do not collect from those spots. Let's see here. Karen would like to know, she said, you mentioned using honey in your pigment. What changes when you use it, and how do you keep it from being so sticky?
Yeah, so the honey is it's called a humting. It's a word so the gum arabic is the binder. So that's what makes the medium workable after it's dried. And I think the essential oil is the preservative, and honey is really the like a sort of binder in that process. So when we did the water honey mixture, we did it with Koni and Zuki, and it was very sticky.
I'm trying to smell really sweet.
Yeah, it smelled very sweet. So I think I prefer using the gum arabic, but if you just want to get a feel and use the things that you already have in your house, then I think it's a good place to start.
With honey.
With honey, yeah.
Yeah, we have some other just comments in the Q&A and chat boxes. Carol mentioned, she says, have you tried preparing wood surfaces with a rabbit skin glue as a primer, using natural or painted natural paints, using an egg yolk as a binder? This is a traditional way of painting, and it was used by the early Spanish artists.
Interesting.
So.
Can you put that in the chat for us? Is that in the chat?
Yeah, so we'll be able to save all of that as questions. Yeah, we have some like really, really interesting folks who are chatting about things they've tried. We also have Kathy, who says there's a guy in Taos who is a wild pigment hunter, and he's on Instagram as a wild pigment hunter. So folks at home can check that out. And Adrienne and Hiroka, I'll get that to you as well. And then Sean would like to know, have you tested the color fastness of the pigments? Do you have any suggestions for stabilizing the pigments?
Stabilizing the pigments. I guess no. We expect the essential oils to be used that helps the preservation process, but we don't know over a long period of time. These sketches were only painted within the past month, so we don't have long-term outcome of what was it the
color fastness, and I would imagine the way it fades. So not quite yet, but definitely this is a work in progress, and they really want to create this to be a community project. So any recommendations on that, I'm sure, would be very much appreciated.
Yeah, we are not the experts in watercolor paints. But we want you to join us in making them, please.
All learning together. Kimberly wants to know if you have ever mixed the dirts together to get different colors, and how did that turn out, or what are you expecting to do with that?
Yeah, I have not personally mixed the pigment powders together. I feel like most of the mixing is happening after they become a paint, watercolor paint, once it's solidified. So no, I haven't mixed the pigment powder, but that's an interesting idea.
Yeah, I think it'd be really interesting. I know when I was doing candle making, I was trying to mix the dyes to get just slightly more Bluff red, right? Because we pick up this really pretty red, but you just, and as Dan mentioned earlier, the way that the light changes throughout the day, I'm sure that would be a really cool way if you added just a little bit darker, a little bit lighter to change your pigments as you go. Let's see here. Wendy has some comments for us. Wendy Smith has some recommendations. She said that you can find green serpentine deposits on a hill up to Blanding, excuse me. And you can also find painted desert deposits coming down into the Highway 89 when you turn to go to Flagstaff. So that's really cool.
Yeah. Actually, interesting about that green color is that we had a really hard time getting the green to come through the same way as the other types of sand that we used. And so I'd be really interested in checking that out, that deposit.
Yeah, I know up near Recapture Reservoir, there's like a really interesting layer it's like almost chalky or kind of clay depending on how moist it is. And so I'd be really curious to see if like your ratios are going to be the same or if it just isn't going to show through at all. I know I had seen an example when you were showing me, Adrienne, and it was odd because it seemed like this very vibrant green color, and yet it didn't quite turn out. So more experimentation to be done as well. Wendy also notes, she said, light and heat orientations for design might also include which rooms go into what areas of the house for cool and hot, the days and the seasons. Can you all talk about that? I mean, we do live in a very extreme climate. So from the Design Build Bluff side, can you talk about how the students think about their designs in regard to the seasons?
For the roof, for example, like now the current project, we are designing a double loop. So then always between the double loop panels, there is a ventilation like the air pass. So the air can go through, and then of course between the double wall, there is insulation too. So then we are keep providing air into the between the roofs and for the insulation. So then keep the material, get like a longer life and so that keep it cooler. So that's kind of we always try to get it like a double loop with ventilation. Yeah.
Very cool. Karen has commented, we're just getting all kinds of great feedback from folks who have already done some research themselves and have looked around. Karen says, in ancestral.com/materials, there's a list of binders, including some that were possibly used by the ancestral Puebloans. So that's really cool. I'm definitely excited to see what you all do, in comparison to other cultures, learning from other cultures. And yeah, we know folks have lived on this land for thousands and thousands of years. So thanks for that tip, Karen. I know we all appreciate it.
And to that point, like I think one of the things that inspires me a lot, not just about Design Build Bluff's work, but there's a really rich vernacular architecture history in this area. And so I think to incorporate geologists and also archaeologists and architectural historians that know more about how these raw materials were used over time is really interesting to me. And like the comment, like what pigments were used previously, preservatives.
Absolutely. So we are kind of winding down the hour. If anyone else has any comments or questions, feel free to type those in now. As I said, you can also raise your hand and we can allow you to talk or bring you into the meeting if you'd like some FaceTime with these wonderful women. I'm going to go out and check out on Facebook Live as well if we have any comments out there. I do have one from Pat. Pat says there are also green deposits on the Red Ledges Trail in the Abajo Mountains. So we have some great comments from all over the Southwest region. This is really cool. Excellent. All right, folks, kind of winding down. Like I said, questions, any other comments and chats, we just really appreciate everyone tuning in. I completely agree, Mona. Absolutely. It's all very inspiring. Adrienne and Hiroko, do you have any closing words or final thoughts for folks at home? A call to action.
Yeah, I guess like the slides that we were showing of other places that have done these collections, one of our goals that we picture for this project is, like Hiroko said, to create maybe a booklet that we can share with the community or share with other communities, or maybe because we can't be together, maybe it's sharing digitally and producing a website. Even like Dan mentioned, there's so much richness just in the color of one bluff over the course of a day. Like that could be one study. And then maybe post-pandemic times, we would love to have people come to Cedar Hall and see our collection of things. And maybe at some point we would start collecting these natural materials and having some sort of archive or physical library displayed here in Cedar Hall for the community to look at and be inspired by, and for visitors to view as well. So if you're interested in being a part of that, if you have some expertise to offer, I know there's so many artists out there that is probably already part of your practice. We want to learn from you, and we want to learn from the community and share that knowledge with in one place.
Beautiful. Well, we really thank you both for your time today. This has been really, really interesting. Yes, Aaron, I actually was going to ask the same thing. Adrian, would you mind having up on the screen your contact information one more time? And what we'll do is we'll leave that on there for a short period of time after we all say goodbye here this morning, so folks can jot that down. You can also email the Arts Festival directly at bluffartsfestival@gmail.com. No spaces or periods or anything, just bluffartsfestival@gmail.com, and we can get you in contact with these wonderful women as well. I just want to thank everyone for their time today, for everyone for tuning in. We had over 50 attendees today from all over the Four Corners region, so this has been really exciting. I'd like to remind folks to please tune in for our final session at noon today. We have our final closing ceremony with Amy Irvine and Pam Houston. They'll be talking a little bit about their newest book. We'll also have some stories from the community, so please tune in for that. But Adrian, Hiroko, I just want to thank you again for your time. We really appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and turn my video off now, but we'll leave the meeting going for just a moment longer for folks to get your contact information. But we'll see you soon. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.